of Olam. There's Pappenhausen.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Inside Storm, proudly presented as always by Redzed. Redzed is the Australian lender that specialises in providing loans for the self-employed. Sam Hargreaves, your host here, and joined by Melbourne Storm royalty, premiership player, former skipper, 169 games in the purple, Robbie Kearns. Hello to you, mate.
G'day, Sammy. Good to be here, mate.
It's wonderful to have you. I'll tell you what was wonderful as well, the game against the Broncos on the weekend, the 40-6 win, but more importantly, we partnered with the Good Friday Appeal, the new initiative, part of our push to create a permanent blockbuster fixture on Good Friday, and what a great night it turned out to be. We had the goal set to raise $50,000 on the night, and thanks to our loyal members, the fans, the sponsors, we were able to reach that goal, which is a phenomenal effort. Then, our good friends at Redzed matched our $50,000, the grand total $100,000, which is just extraordinary and something we're incredibly proud of. Now, Robbie, one of the highlights for me was the halftime, thanks to Tradie. We had the convert for the children, and my co-host here, which is your good self, and last week's co-host, Peter Robinson, $9,500 raised. How did you go?
Yeah, this is the first time I've seen this vision, and in my playing career, I kicked 2 out of 3, believe it or not, for the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks.
Oh, just.
But it was obviously backed by the tradie, and it was a fantastic initiative to raise a lot of money for the Good Friday Appeal. And I'm just looking at myself here. Geez, I look a bit tubby. That must have been the shirt I was wearing, but...
Well, the camera does add just one or two. As you wait, when the camera comes back to me, you'll see.
No,
I don't know if Robbo's really... Did Robbo dress for the...
Yeah, I don't think so.
For the occasion?
No, he had a suit on, I had shorts on, so I should have been kicking a lot better than what I was. But I think I kicked about 10 straight. And on my 11th and 12th, that's when my hip started falling off. And believe it or not, I was limping off. And a lot of people thought I did my hamstring, but... I've had a crook hip for a few years, and after about the 10th kick, that's when it really set in. But I wasn't too bad the next day. I had a couple of painkillers that night and got through it.
It was brilliantly done by both you and Robbo. Hey, now, Robbie, we are going to do something a little different this week. So I'm going to get you to head over to the big screen TV. And before we go over to Robbie, we want to give away 4 tickets to our next home game against the Roosters on Friday, April 16th. This is going to be huge. To win, we need you to let us know your favourite moment against the Roosters. It's in the comments below. So just get typing away, get those thumbs to work. And it's now time for the Redzed report. We're going to take a closer look at some of the plays that caught Robbie Kearns' eye on Friday night. The 40-6 win over the Broncos. It's 9 in a row now that the Storm have won against Brisbane. And the boys are a little bit slow getting out of the blocks. Robbie, a bit sluggish to start the game. It led to early mistakes. Early mistakes led to an early try for the Broncos.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Sammy. Maybe we can have a look at some vision here. The first try of the game, big Xavier Coates. But as we can see there, stop the vision there, we see Justin Olam. He's actually got his eyes on the opposition, not the ball. And I think he was thinking that there was going to be a cutout ball from young Pappenhausen, the Fox, but it was actually going through the hands to Justin. Drops the ball early on in the game, which obviously leads to big Xavier Coates running away for a well-earned try. As we can see there, if Josh Addo-Carr maybe put in another couple of metres, I reckon he would have been able to tackle him rather than the ankle tap. So most probably a poor play there from Josh Addo-Carr. If he's had his time again, he most probably would have ran him down another couple of metres.
You'd back him to run anybody down on any given day. We know that he's the fastest man on the planet. Gus Gould's already told us that on repeat. The star of the game, though, was Ryan Pappenhausen. I mean, this was an extraordinary 11 minutes from the 25-minute mark to the 36-minute mark. 4 tries, 11 minutes. We can't play them all because we don't have enough time. But let's start with his 3rd try of the game.
Yeah, as you can see, Pappenhausen had an amazing game. You just mentioned it. But what he does very well, he backs up the big man. And big Nelson Sofa-Solomona has always got a free hand and usually pops up a ball when you can least expect it. And usually a second phase play always usually catches the opposition on the hop, and that's exactly what we saw there. Opposition was turning to the right, thinking he was going to spread the ball. Pappenhausen comes off his left and goes under the post untouched pretty much.
Craig Bellamy spoke about the lead-up work to the tries. I mean, Pappenhausen got the finish, but Belzer was very keen to point out the lead-up work that the rest of the side had done to put Pappenhausen in positions to be able to score.
Yeah, we've got some big guys up front, obviously big Nas and big Jesse Bromwich. They always seem to get their hands free. Another try here, I think it was Pappenhausen's 4th try. Again, Nelson offloads back on to Brandon Smith, which leads to Pappenhausen's try. But what he does very well, Pappenhausen, he always backs up. The great Robbie Ross, our original fullback, was fantastic at that. If he scored 100 tries, 95 of them were from backing up in the right spot, where Billy Slater was the opposite. 95 of his tries were on just off the back of his sheer brilliance. But Pappenhausen does an amazing job backing up the big boys. He's always going to get a try or two backing up the likes of Big Nass and Jesse Bromwich for sure.
So the second half, it opens up, Robbie, doesn't it? We saw George Jennings score his first ever try for the club. He ends up with 2, but this guy's been on a bit of a journey. Parramatta, Penrith first, then the Eels, and then last year 6 games with the Warriors, and he looks to have found a home in the purple at the Storm.
Yeah, definitely. He's him and young Remus doing an amazing job on our right-hand side. Young Trent. We saw that, Trent made his debut on the weekend. Congratulations to him and his family. Played a good role, actually. Played about 20-odd minutes in his first off game. But back to Pappenhausen, not only is he scoring tries, but he's setting them up. Cut-out ball to young Jennings and, as you said, gets across the Melbourne Storm for his very first try in the purple colours.
The last try of the game came from Cam Munster, but it wasn't the most conventional try we've ever scored, and that could run true for everything that we ever say about Cam Munster. Doesn't always do it the conventional and the normal way. He puts his own little bit of flair on it. Yeah,
absolutely. And as we can see, due to this clip, a lot of people are saying it was very fluky, but you make your own luck. And as we can see, big Jesse Bromwich coming through, the offload, Pappenhausen out the back, Cameron Munster soccers it through, scores a try, and as I said, you make your own luck. And pardon the pun, but Cameron Munster's been in a purple patch for the first start of this year.
Beautifully done, and I reckon Kevy Walters would have been pretty disappointed to see just how asleep it looked like the Broncos' defensive line was there. A couple of little toe pokes through it. It didn't look good from their end.
Yeah, they had their opportunity to jump on that ball, but as you said, they fell asleep, and Kevy Walters would most probably be very disappointed in their effort around that ball.
Robbie, brilliant insight, as always. Absolutely appreciate that. Let's hear now from Remus Smith, ahead of playing against his old side this weekend, Canterbury Bulldogs.
Remus, coming up against your former club this week, have you had any texts from any of your former teammates?
No, not as of yet, but they'll be coming in for sure. It's going to be, I don't know, weird one for me, come up against my old team and a couple of my best mates, so it's going to be interesting.
How are you settling into Melbourne, and what excited you the most about signing with Storm?
I'm settling pretty good, eh? Like, the club's helped me out a lot, and I'm living with a couple of boys, so that always helps. And yeah, I feel like I'm fitting in. I'm starting to find my place in the team and in the club, so it's very, very good, and I'm happy that I made the decision.
Before you arrived, did you have a certain impression of the club, and has that changed?
Yeah, I didn't like a good impression of the club. I just thought it's going to be tough, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be enjoyable. And when I came down here for pre-season and the first couple of games, it's been exactly that and a bit more. So it's exceeded my expectations, and I'm really happy with that.
Great to hear from Remus Smith there, a man that, Robbie, you mentioned has had a great impact in his first year at the Melbourne Storm. Let's now jump in and have a look at the teams that were announced last night for this big clash against the Bulldogs on Saturday, 5:30 p.m. at Stadium Australia. This is the team that's been named, Robbie, and the only confirmed change at this stage is Felice Kafusi, Queensland Origin rep, coming into the side, slotting back into that number 11, which is a big inclusion for the Storm.
Yeah, it's a very strong side looking at that on paper. Obviously, Pappenhausen had an amazing game last week, as we just seen. Big Georgie Jennings, Remus Smith. Justin Olam's been in fine form. I'd hate to run into him. He'd done a couple of massive hits on the weekend. The list goes on. I think one of the standouts so far this year has been Christian Walsh.
Yep.
I love seeing this guy go around. He's an ultimate professional and doing an amazing job. Both him, Jesse Bromwich and Big Nelson, the 3 big men up front. Kenny Bromwich does an amazing job there, and a couple of boys on the bench there doing a fine job as well.
Game 100 for Christian Welch last week, and it seems to me like a guy that's the ultimate locker room player as well. Not only what he does on the field, but the way that he brings the team together. And we might even just see a little example of that later on. But a notable name that's been put in as a possible reserve is Harry Grant. Now, a long time out injured. We saw the Origin debut last year, one of the greatest Origin debuts we've ever seen. We know he went to the Tigers last year, and we've all been hanging out to see him back in the Storm jersey, the heir apparent to Cameron Smith, which, no pressure. But how good would it be to get him back in this side?
Yeah, he's an amazing player, Harry Grant. Obviously, we saw what he did last year for the Tigers up there in Sydney. They were desperate for him to stay up there in Sydney, but very loyal, Harry, thank God. And he's back here in Melbourne and obviously doing an amazing job at the start of the year. As we saw, he injured his leg in one of the trial matches, missed the first 4 games, but we'll be back this weekend, whether it be playing in our Q Cup or if not for the Melbourne Storm. Fingers crossed for the Melbourne Storm. So you're looking forward to Harry going around. Big decision to be made for Craig Bellamy. Will he start Harry Grant or will he take him off the bench? Remus Smith's been doing an amazing job at number 9 and
He has.
We're blessed in that area for sure.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at this Canterbury Bulldogs team. 3 games in a row, they've failed to put a try down. It's a worrying start under Trent Barrett, so they will be very, very keen to atone for what's been a really ordinary 3 weeks for them. There's history between these two sides. This is the team that they've named, and you know that they're just going to come out and throw everything they've got at the Melbourne Storm, especially in those opening minutes.
Yeah, it's very similar to Brisbane Broncos last weekend. If we can contain them for the first 20 minutes, I'm sure we'll run away with the game. But they've got a strong list on paper. If you look through some of those names, I mean, Kyle Flanagan's in a new inclusion this year, as is Corey Allen, Nick Kotrick, all try-scoring machines. They've got a very good forward pack in Josh Jackson, Corey Waddell, Adam Elliott, and the big pommy, Luke Thompson. So interesting side, and big Dylan Napper on the bench also. So they've got a strong side on paper. And Trent Barrett, I've had a lot to do with him, as mentioned, and I'm sure he's a great coach and he'll get the best out of that team. But they're just lacking 1 or 2 players, but I'm sure they'll come out firing this weekend against the Melbourne Storm in what will be a good game of football. Well,
let's have a look at it. The Redzed preview. This game against Canterbury is Saturday afternoon, as I mentioned, 5:30 p.m. start in Sydney. The head-to-head between both sides. Surprising, you'd think Melbourne Storm over the last few years have dominated this fixture, but locked at 21 apiece in the 42 games that they've played.
Yeah, interesting stat this, Sammy. I thought the Melbourne Storm would have, like most teams in the competition with their recent success, would be all over the Canterbury Bulldogs. But obviously, I dare say the Doggies would have won a few games early on, maybe when I was playing, Sammy. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, this one. Obviously, Melbourne Storm would go into this game as clear favourites. But as mentioned earlier on, the Canterbury Bulldogs will have nothing to lose. And they'll come out all guns blazing, and it'll be an interesting start to the game. Melbourne Storm can contain them for the first 20 or 30 minutes. I'm sure the Melbourne Storm will get away with a well-deserved win. So
it was a strong performance, as we know, by the Storm last Friday. Looking to build momentum now and really need to keep this moving against the Bulldogs. Conceded the first try against the Broncos. Don't want to do that again this week. Craig Bellamy will be really keen not to give up a start, but it's now about stringing wins together.
Yeah, definitely. I thought the Melbourne Storm were a little bit slow out of the blocks last weekend. And that first try to Xavier Coates, again, came off one of the Melbourne Storm's mistakes. And if you drop the ball early on in the game, it's usually opposition going to make you pay, and that's what we saw last weekend. So Craig Bellamy will be looking for a better start from the Melbourne Storm. And if we can do that, as mentioned, I'm sure the Melbourne Storm will get away with a well-deserved win.
Beautiful analysis, Robbie Kearns. Now, every week we like to do a little segment called What Caught Our Eye. We'll be keeping an eye out for what's happening on the Storm's socials. And these are the clips that caught our eye this week. And we'll start with Christian Welch. I mentioned before, game 100 last week. This is why he's so well loved in the locker room.
Well, it's funny enough, Sammy, because Cooper Johns is usually the prankster. He just got pranked by the big Christian Welch. So good to see a little bit of something coming back on Cooper Johns. And we can see Josh Addo-Carr loves a bit of a dance move. Got the boombox going and the feet tapping. That's good to see. He's a wonderful person to have around the club.
Now, is it a rule that we can't start training until Josh has finished dancing? Because I noticed everyone standing around just waiting for him to get it done. This is Max King.
Yeah, real good character. This is big Darren. Darren has got the tradie underwear on. Tradie, one of our new sponsors with the Melbourne Storm, and doing an amazing job, looking good, looking fit, and I never looked like that back in my day, Sammy.
No, and I've never looked like that in any day. So our next home game, and by the way, that is just great to see, that insight into what goes on behind the scenes at the Melbourne Storm. We'll continue to show you what caught our eye during the course of the week. And don't forget to follow the Melbourne Storm on all the social medias that you can find. Next home game, of course, the Roosters. How big a clash is this? Friday, April 16th, kick-off 7:55 p.m. Remember, if you want 4 tickets to the game, all you need to do is let us know your favourite moment against the Roosters. Robbie, have you got a favourite Roosters moment for the Melbourne Storm?
Yeah, I can recall we played a game down in Adelaide, I think it might have been 4 years ago, when Cooper Cronk was playing for the Roosters for the very first time. We matched up against his old teammates, and there was a little bit of rivalry building between Cameron Smith and Cooper Cronk. And sure enough, I think Cameron Smith kicked the winning field goal with about 2 minutes to go. So against the Roosters, and obviously we all know what happened after that. The Roosters went on to beat the Melbourne Storm in the grand final a couple of years after that. So it's interesting. I mean, the two powerhouses of the competition, the Melbourne Storm, obviously representing Victoria, the Sydney City Roosters, they're the bigwigs up there in Sydney. So it's basically a New South Wales versus Victoria thing, Melbourne versus Sydney, and it's going to be a fine game come a couple of weeks. But first and foremost, we've got to look after the Canterbury Bulldogs this weekend, Sammy. But looking forward to that mouth-watering clash against the Roosters in a couple of weeks' time. You
got a score prediction for us for Canterbury and Melbourne? Can Melbourne hold the Bulldogs to a 4th straight week of no score?
I reckon there'll be a lot said about, especially up there in Sydney, where they the media really ride each team up there, and the fact that Canterbury Bulldogs have gone, as you said, 3 or 4 weeks without scoring. Trent Barrett will have these guys up for a very big game of football. So I don't think we can keep them scoreless, but I think the Melbourne Storm will get away with a win, and I can see a much better prepared team, the Canterbury Bulldogs. So I think it's going to be a tight game, but I think Melbourne Storm, let's just say 20 points to 12 Melbourne Storm this weekend.
Let's get a couple in a row, Stormers. That's all for tonight's Inside Storm. It's proudly presented by Redzed. Redzed is the Australian lender that specialises in providing loans for the self-employed. A big thank you to the man to my left, Robbie Kearns, Melbourne Storm royalty, for joining me tonight. It was a pleasure having you, mate, and we look forward to chatting to you again soon.
Thanks, Sammy.
And thank you to all the members and fans for tuning in. We will speak to you again very soon, and we'll see you the same time again next Wednesday.